everyone, welcome to Cardiff Central Library Hub chapter Storytime. I'm Sian and today we are going to be reading the third chapter of our fabulous chapter storybook, The Wizard in My Shed, by the amazing Simon Farnaby, illustrated by the amazing Claire Powell and read with the kind permission of the amazing Hodder publishers. So, last week in chapter 2 we met Rose, who was taking part in a talent contest at school and it didn't go particularly well. And in the first chapter, we met Merdyn the Wild, a warlock who was put into the rivers of Purgatory but was actually tricked into the rivers of Time. So I'm not sure who's going to pop up in chapter 3. Is it going to be Rose? Is it going to be Merdyn? Is it going to be someone else entirely? Should we find out? So, chapter 3 is called Two Inquisitors and Strange Visitors. You ready? Rose was still running when she passed the Old Well shopping centre. Now, if you will permit me, I must just add an aside here, because you see, the Old Well shopping centre has a very interesting history relating to our story. Were you to step through its vast electronic sliding doors onto its gleaming marble effect floor and carry on past the neon signs of Gucci and Sports Directly, just before accessorise this, you would find yourself looking at a fake ornamental garden. Now, this fake ornamental garden has fake flowers, plastic trees, synthetic grass. The only thing that's real about the fake ornamental garden is, well, a very real old well. Now, if you're thinking, I bet it's the old well from chapter 1, the one that mean old Jeremiah Jeroboth threw Merdyn the Wild's broken staff Thundarian Dam approximately 1,500 years ago, then you'd be wrong. It's a different old well, and I'm joking. Of course, you're right. Now, you're obviously very clever. You deserve a gold star or a trophy. It's the exact same well. But now it's surrounded not by a forest of trees, but a forest of gleaming shops. The company, which had built the sprawling shopping centre several years earlier, had only got permission from the council on the condition that they preserved the historic well. So they turned it into a feature. Today, like every day, 2 security guards, Jim and Alan, stood guard over the ornamental garden. In the olden days, the well had been used as a wishing well, and people were invited to throw coins in exchange for their dreams coming true. However, in more recent times, people had realised that you could also take coins out of the well, presumably to make their dreams of having 50p or a pound come true. So the shopping centre management had decided to put a fence around the well and guard it. And this is where Jim and Alan came in. Now, guarding the ornamental garden was one of the least demanding jobs in the world. So it was surprising that neither Jim nor Alan noticed when a huge hole opened up in the fake grass behind them and an ethereal green light shot out. A few of the shoppers noticed, but no sooner had the hole opened up than it closed again. So they quickly dismissed it as a publicity stunt and carried on shopping. But as the light disappeared, it left behind it on the fake grass the crumpled figure of a 6th century warlock, Merdyn the Wild. Merdyn opened his eyes. His pupils grew huge as they adjusted to the strip lighting and neon signs of the shops. Remember, in the Dark Ages, the only light sources were the sun, fire, and an odd candle. Now he had flashing lights, mirror balls, all sorts of other luminescence assaulting his peepers. "Heaven forfend," he exclaimed. "Hell is worse than I thought." This statement brought him to the attention of Jim and Alan, who could scarcely believe their eyes when they turned round. Of all the vagabonds and thieves they'd had to turf out of the garden, a whole 6 in 11 years. This was the most impudent yet. "Oi," said Jim, "what are you doing in there?" "Trying to fetch yourself some coins from the well, are you?" said Alan, pleased with his powers of deduction. "Who do you think you are?" added Jim. This was the sort of question that didn't require an answer, but Merdyn sought to give him one anyway. "I am Merdyn the Wild," he boomed, "the greatest warlock who ever lived, destroyer of enemies. Bow down before me, demons, or feel my wrath." There was a pause as Jim and Alan looked at each other. "You what?" said Alan finally. The 2 guards stepped over the little garden fence and moved menacingly towards the 6th century warlock. Merdyn reached instinctively for Thundarian in order to blow them away with a fireball, but he just ended up grasping at thin air, for of course he was without his loyal staff. He would have to use the herbs around his belt to perform magic. Herb spells were primary school alchemy compared to more advanced staff spells, and much less spectacular, but he had no choice. "Feel my wrath?" said Jim. "You feel my blooming handcuffs in a minute, mate." And with that, he pulled out his handcuffs and went to make a citizen's arrest on Merdyn, grabbing hold of his wrists. "And hand me thou fop-doodle." Now, a fop-doodle means a limp dawdler. It's not the most devastating insult, but a great word, in my opinion. And as a further note of interest, there are many people who think that fop-doodle slowly morphed over time into the American word dude, meaning an extremely carefree person. Anyway, back to the story. "And hand me thou fop-doodle," Merdyn cursed, and having no time to mix a herb spell, resorted to poking Jim in the eye with his finger. An undignified move for a warlock, but an effective one nonetheless. Squelch! "Ah, he's blinded me," Jim cried. Now it was Alan's turn to try. He got a fist in the ear for his troubles. Crump! "Oh, he's broken my earlobe," Alan wailed as he rolled around on the floor. "Boot!" Merdyn kicked him hard in the backside. "Right, that's it," roared Alan. "Now you're in trouble." As one, Jim and Alan grabbed Merdyn's legs and pulled him to the ground. The ungainly scuffle in the garden was now gathering the attention of shoppers who stopped and stared at the strange sight. As the men tumbled around on the fake grass, Jim's security guard hat fell off, Alan's wig was dislodged, revealing a shiny bald head, and this just added to the anger they felt towards this intruder, so they tried even harder to cuff him. Then, just as it looked as though Jim and Alan were besting him, Merdyn pulled a fake tree out of the ground and expertly cracked Jim's knees with a branch and knocked Alan out cold with a root. Bish! Bosh! The great Warlock didn't like to be reminded of his time as a soldier in the King's army, but here was an occasion where his training came in useful. His antics had by now attracted the attention of a local police officer, Sergeant Murray. Sergeant Murray came from a long line of police officers, and he took his job so seriously that he'd grown a moustache, simply so he could look like a stereotypical policeman. When he spotted the strange man in a pointy hat fighting with the shopping centre security guard, Sergeant Murray felt his moustache bristle. It was like a radar for trouble, that moustache, and here was trouble with a capital T. He immediately called for backup through his police radio. Merdyn heard the crackle of the radio as the sergeant's backup answered, "Roger, Roger, we're on your tail." But having never heard a police radio before, Merdyn assumed instead that this was the call of the giant ravens, rumoured to patrol the burning skies of hell looking for prey. He definitely didn't want to be giant bird food, so he set off running as fast as he could. Thinking he'd spotted an exit, he bolted for it and rang, smack bang, into the glass window of accessorised this. Donk! Remember, there wasn't any clear glass in the Dark Ages either, so to Merdyn he'd just run into a wall of hard air. What sorcery be this? He wondered aloud, but he had no time to sit and think. He pulled himself up off the ground, rubbed his sore nose and took his search for the exit again. This time he ran straight into a donuts arrest stand. Dozens of sticky donuts shot up into the air and scattered across the floor. The donut stand worker assumed Merdyn was trying to steal the donuts, so he picked up a broom and he bonked Merdyn on the head with it. Bonk! Bonk! "Ah, what demon art thou?" screamed Merdyn as the blows rained down upon him. Somewhere a whistle blew. Whee! Merdyn looked up to see a whole gang of black and white giant raven people, or police to you and me, headed this way. He picked up the closest weapon to him, a donut, and he pelted it. Poof! The donut hit Sergeant Murray straight in the moustache, stopping him in his tracks and allowing Merdyn to escape once more. Shoppers scattering as he ran. Finally, the befuddled Warlock found the vast electric sliding doors of the exit, but to him, they were like the giant snapping jaws of a dragon. Bravely, Merdyn ran at the crunching mouth, but each time he misjudged his charge so that he smacked into the doors. Whack, crunch, crack, whack. On his final attempt, he nearly made it, only to be caught in the jaws of the door like a sausage in a pair of pincers. Eventually, he managed to throw himself clear, and finally, he was outside. But his horrors weren't ending there. They were just beginning. For he'd run straight into a busy main road. Imagine seeing a car, bus or lorry for the first time. Ever! Imagine the fastest, loudest transport you'd ever experienced up to that moment was a horse. Then imagine a wall of vehicles coming towards you, screeching their brakes and beeping their horns all at once. Beep, beep, screech, honk! Merdyn stood frozen in fear. Then he heard an ear-piercing noise from the sky. Shriek! He looked up. His eyes couldn't believe what they were seeing. Gads budlikins, 'tis a metal eagle! Gads budlikins literally means God's little body. The closest translation for today would be oh my God, or if you really must, OMG. But isn't Gad's budlickin so much better. Back to the story. It was, of course, an aeroplane, but Merdyn had seen nothing flying through the air but birds and butterflies his whole life, and now a Boeing 747 was shrieking past like a giant silver bird. At this moment, Sergeant Murray popped out of the shopping centre doors like a champagne cork, a spray of officers behind him. Merdyn looked desperately around and spotted a wood in the distance. Real trees, something he recognised. He hitched up his cloak and he ran straight for them before diving into the undergrowth and disappearing from sight. To all he passed, I must confess, he was just a bloke in fancy dress. So, that's the end of chapter 3. What will happen next time? Where's Merdyn going? Where's Rose? Ah! Chapter 4 is called Mum Troubles and a Pig Called Bubbles. See you next time. Take care.